All right, it's 2 p.m. Central African Time. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to another insightful episode of Market View, your go-to source for all things business. I'm your host, Sifiso Ngumalo, and I'm very thrilled to have you join us today. Now, on today's show, we have a compelling discussion lined up for you with none other than our business journalist, Nelsiwe Ndlangamandla. Together, we'll be delving into a significant development shaking up the financial landscape of Eswatini. The Central Bank of Eswatini is taking bold steps in means to bolster its regulatory role by securing a seat on the board of the Financial Services Regulatory Authority. Now, according to Dr. Philip Nisi, who is the governor of the Central Bank, this move is very pivotal in ensuring a robust oversight over both financial as well as non-financial institutions. Now, stay tuned on the program as Nelsiwe and myself unpack the implications as well as the potential outcomes of this strategic initiative. You won't want to miss this insightful conversation. We will, of course, later on the program have today's financial analysis by our economist, Mr. Sanele Sibi. A lot is happening today in the financial landscape. You do want to stay tuned on the program until that very last segment to hear what today's indexes are telling us. For now, let's look at business news. And here's our first story. The central bank is advising investing heavily on exports in order to grow the country's economy. Now, speaking during his presentation at the Economic Outlook at MTN Office Park at Eswatini, the governor of the Central Bank of Eswatini, Dr. Philip Nisi, says this is essential as imports come in hard currency and they are very expensive.
I am happy to report that the country's position with the rest of the world continues to be competitive given the healthy trade balance as evidenced by the external sector statistics. In March 2024, the country recorded a trade surplus of 391.8 million compared to a deficit of 143.5 million in the preceding month. Exports were up in the month, totaling 3.6 billion compared to 3.4 billion in February. Year on year, this was an increase of 2%. Imports decreased in the month of March, amounting to 3.2 billion from 3.5 billion in the previous month, which is 15.9% higher year on year. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important construct in our economy. If this country is going to thrive, we must be self-sufficient. We have got tremendous potential as a country to optimize the resources that we have. We are endowed with precious metals, natural resources, good lands. We must move to a level where we become an export-led economy. Imports in this era are very expensive because they come in hard currency, and the major currency that we are trading with, it's quite stronger, and therefore making it quite expensive for us to bring in imports into the country.
The governor has also highlighted that the Mkhonto Ngwavuma project will contribute immensely to the economy.
The second half of the year 2023 marked the commencements of the Mkhonto Ngwavuma multi-billion project, particularly the construction of the Mpangeni Dam. This project and investment is expected to be one of the main drivers of growth for the short to medium term, coupled with other developments within the sectors of the economy. Real GDP growth in 2024 is projected to grow by 4.9%, while the outer years 2025 and 2026 are revised upward to 3.7% and 3% respectively.
The governor has also highlighted that Eswatini's economic outlook is a promising one, as it is projected to grow by up to 4.9% for 2024. For Market View, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Ezulwini.
And that's it for our business news today. We'll go for a net break. We want to look at another development pronounced by Central Bank Governor Dr. Philip Nyusi in the strengthening of the central bank's regulatory role in the process of ensuring that it wants to sit in the board of the Financial Services Regulatory Authority. We want to look at that after the break. We'll then have a discussion with our business journalist, Nelson Dlangamandla.
Ujala masoda amahle kunathi lesa.
Sabatandi ukuthi njengaloku
Sivile sive sikhulume.
Welcome back. Let's look at the story from the Central Bank of Eswatini, which says to strengthen its role, the regulatory role in the Central Bank of Eswatini, it is in the process of ensuring that it sits in the board of the Financial Services Regulatory Authority. The governor of the Central Bank of Eswatini, Dr. Philip Nyusi, says this is going to ensure that the central bank actively plays its oversight role in the regulation of financial as well as non-financial institutions.
Inzaba yekuthatha kwema deposit from the public bekunene lena vele ngifuna nje kokwenda a very firm commitment. It's a one matter that we are keeping a very close eye on ngoba nalama non-banks afika camouflage ende kwangazuthi they are giving investable assets kanti mbambamba they are taking deposits from the public. So we are tightening our coordination with FSRA where they are currently regulated. Keep a very close eye. Nyalo njena, in fact, ngiyathemba ukuthi kutawuphumelela ngoba besikhuluma na minister, i-Central Bank nyalo will be represented at the board of FSRA. So that the closer eye of the Central Bank is there to FSRA. We know that as part of the consolidation of the state-owned enterprises, the functions of FSRA were going to be fully under the central bank, but that is taking longer. We cannot allow ourselves to let the leakage go on, the information to be the country to be bleeding. So we are stepping up our regulatory role and will be standing closer. I am not sure how far the minister is finalized, but the last I heard the conversation was that the governor will be sitting at the FSRA board. This is not meant to, to frustrate the operations of FSRA, but is to create transparency, to create a regulatory landscape that is transparent to all. This will make sure ukuthi the financial regulation department yetu nale regulatory platform lega FSRA, they work hand in hand. There's clear sight of what is happening, who is doing what, and we don't place Eswatini's hard-earned earnings and savings at risk.
I like the sentiment where the governor says this is not to frustrate the operations of the FSRA. And Nelly, as I welcome you to the program, I like to ask you, first and foremost, with regards to what he just said. We don't want to frustrate the operations of the FSRA, because my biggest concern listening to him speak before he said that very sentiment was this could probably frustrate the autonomy and operations of the FSRA. But he's saying they are not going to do that. It is not going to happen. But how is that not going to happen when they are involved?
Thank you so much Sifiso ngivusele nembukele ekhaya. Lana siyabuka Sifiso ukuthi maybe nase kuna regulator sekahlala ebodini, maybe vele the autonomy and the independence of the FSRA maybe will be hampered somehow. But what the governor is saying, we don't want them to work in isolation. But what I've gathered good research yami is it would be better if maybe the central bank would just capacitate the FSRA, mhlawumbe bamnikete mhlawumbe mandla lamaningi, bamnikete staff, rather than for the central bank maybe to sit in the board. But at the same time, governor lana utawube abuka mhlawumbe ku-issuishwa kwema-license, because most of the time that is what boards do kulesinye isikhathi. So utawukhanza ukuthi uyahlala governor uyakubuka ukuthi okay, this company is going to be given the license to operate in Eswatini, mhlambe do the vetting in everything, but the day-to-day activities lagendekako as the FSRA is working, maybe the governor utawube sekangekho lapho, which brings me to my point of saying it is important to capacitate FSRA, because there are other processes that will be happening where the governor, where the board will not be sitting in those meetings.
Okay, now they sit on the board meetings. That is established. That has been agreed upon. They are not on the everyday, the day-to-day operations, and that ensuring that they do not hamper into the autonomy and independence of the FSRA. Now, the question then becomes, from you, Nelly, how does this impact, say, the oversight of both financial and non-financial institutions? Just having them on the board.
Having them on the board will play a critical role in that they will be able to see what FSRA is doing. Lokunye utawukhanza ukuthi nangabe mhlawumbe leto tinkampane setikhona ti applyela lawo ma licenses, the central bank is able to see, because ngemuva nje central bank beyingekho ebodini, and loko bekwenda ukuthi even nga FSRA ukuthi nyalo kwendakalani, which is why we have imali engangabo 314 million ihambile even. The central bank is the clearing house. So ukhanze ukuthi ayisati i-central bank mhlawumbe le mali seyibona muva. So lana kunema advantages and disadvantages, because utawukhanza ukuthi sebativa bayasinva at the same time when the regulator is sitting on the board. At the same time, it will help in that the central bank will have first-hand information now where these are the companies that are coming to Eswatini.
I want us to, like you've highlighted, there's advantages and some disadvantages, and you make it seem like it's very, very minuscule or little challenges. I want us to get into that, the challenges and the obstacles that might, come in through the integration, on this integration, really.
Ema-challenges lakhona Sifiso ngiwona la ukuthi ke utawukhanza ukuthi vele laba baka FSRA abasakhona ukusebenza kahle, nekwe ukuthi mhlawumbe i-central bank yona ayisakhona mhlawumbe ikhanzakala ukuthi indlela lese basebenza ngayo seyabahindarisha bona basakhona mhlawumbe ukuthi letinfo batiphushe kahle, because nakakhona regulator ahletina bolana, they might feel like maybe asakhona ukusebenza kahle. But the overall is loku kuze ukuthi central bank ithathe le step lesi, siyati ukuthi bekufanele ukuthi kube ne measure yema parastatals. We know ukuthi FSRA, Center for Financial Inclusion, bekumele ukuthi angene under FSRA, but loko sekuthethe isikhathi leside, hence this move by i-central bank to say, okay, because this is taking too long, okay, nyalo asale singena, at least let's have someone, let's have the governor be part of le body yaka FSRA, so that kutoba nemuntu for now lotawubuka, because kusete lokuthi ema parastatals sekamejiwe nyalo.
And again, the lingering issues that we have seen that speak to corruption, and some speak to alleged corruption that we know we are not certain of. We've seen what the Exponent saga, and now the sweet story, coming up again, and it's still lingering. And you did ask the governor to address that one as well. Let's listen to him address that particular story.
Sweet ibhlungu, but I'm very happy with what the central bank did. We really stepped up here. First of all, we took an executive decision and said, let's deal with it. Let us pay the people that we can confirm their claims. And I'm happy that, if I'm not mistaken, they have been paid. laba baka Swift, to a majority of them that confirmed. Others we are still verifying, but nje le mali yabo laba investor, at least we took a decision ukuthi ababhadalwe labantu, even nale shortfall. We, as a central bank, said, let us make sure ukuthi kude lotawuthi yathi mina imali engayifaka angitholi. There was a shortfall of about 1.7, 1.9 million on the total fund. And we said we'll cover it so that nobody is disenfranchised in this regard. So there is good intention, but at the same time, you know, this is a broader a problem. I would like to say there are processes legal that are being undertaken parallel to the liquidation that is happening in the suite processes. And those will be unveiled as the legal process run its course. So uma kukhanzakala lana uthi vele ukhona lo waganga ka suite angeke azaphume ahambe nje anga brought to order. That will happen. I am ably and advise Gutsi, the legal process is taking its course parallel to the process of distribution, so that kube nema lessons learned.
All right, there's going to be lessons that are going to be learned. Issues are being dealt with, and that is what we want to see. We want to see every issue that arises, that confronts us with problems, being dealt with decisively and strategically, and that is what the central bank is doing with this Nelson. And I think looking at keeping the positive sentiment, let's look at how this might maybe boost investor confidence and overall economic stability. How do we see that happening?
Thank you so much, Sfiso. Nangabe live linema systems la very strong. Loko kutaw booster the investor confidence. Live Eswatini ikakhulu kulamalanga libuke foreign direct investment. Lokusho ukuthi nangabe bamfu basibuka basikhanza ukuthi ama systems ethu are strong. Bantu batawuba interested ikakhulu bosoma business lababuya ngaphandle kwelive. Kepha ke nangabe kubonakala ukuthi kangwane imali uyayikhokha nje uphinze uyilethe kube bede lonakako sinabo anti money laundering nangabe le mithetho leyo ibonakala ilandzeleka. As the central bank is saying ukuthi ngasho nje ukuthi uthi governor if kukhona labagangile lana ka suite ngekuthatha imali tebantu ngaleyo ndlela batithatha batfake emabhange baphinze batikhokhe, heads will roll. So uma ngabe le mithetho yethu ingileyo leqinile kusho ukuthi bosoma business batawungena kakhulu even.
Yeah, and the central bank governor, I think on our first story, on our opening story, which you eloquently reported, was speaking on our domestic economy,
yes,
focusing
growing
on being export driven.
Yes.
And I think that also boosts our own investor appetite to, want to be in these financial institutions and, align with everything that they want to do. If there's going to be honesty and diligence, how do you expect, this is my last question, by the way, how do you expect maybe stakeholders now, including financial institutions, to react to this development?
Ngicabanga ukuthi ama financial institutions le development lena they will welcome it, but another thing that I want to get into we have seen how things played out bo exponent lokunye bosomnotho labakushoko nje ukuthi kumcoka kwekuthi sisenda le mithetho sisenda le tinfo labamfu labasebenta kulama financial services regulatory authorities, they should be paid enough. Being paid enough means lo muntu ngeke nje umbribe nga 50,000. We have seen enzabeni yaka exponent where someone was bribed nga 100,000. So if these people are being paid enough, loko kutawenda ukuthi ungafiki njena uthi nginikete license unginikete 50,000 ngikhone ukumthatha loko kugcina sekwenda ukuthi live likhone ukuthi lithembeke kuma investors, because wetama lokuthi labantu labadila ngaleti imali labantu labadila ngekuthi banikete ma license bangasheshi nje bavume ne license ngalokuthi sekukhona labaniketwe kona.
Nelly, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your insights. We want to go for an ad break and we'll connect with Sanele Sibia, our economist, after the break. Look at the commodities of the day and the crypto analysis of the day and everything else concerning financial markets today after the break.
Ujala masoda amahle kunathi lesa.
sabatandi ukuthi njengalokhu
Sivile sive sitikhulume.
Renewal of TV licenses for 2024 is now open. Here is a quick reminder. A viewer's TV license costs 180 emalangeni per device. Other accessories such as decoders and set-top box cost 50 emalangeni per device. For traders and repairers, TV license costs 300 emalangeni per business area. And now, to pay your TV license, use these following methods. You can use MTN Mobile Money with the number 76222000 or dial *007*3*7#, or you can use Eswatini Imali. And you can pay our TV license at any post office in the country. Another option is you can use any NetBank branch using our TV license account number 119900430037. Don't forget, when paying for your viewer's TV license, reference with your PIN at all times. And when paying for a retailer TV license, reference with your TIN at all times. For more information, call us on 7802-4543 or 34050163 or 34020879. And you can send us a WhatsApp message on 762222000.
Welcome back. Let us now dissect the latest movements across various markets. We will appreciate an analysis from Mr. Sanele Sbi, our economist, who joins us now virtually. Mr. Sbi, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the program. Let's start with commodities today. Given the recent increase in the Brent crude index by 0.55%, I was just looking on the internet. What implications does this upward trend hold for global oil markets and the broader economy?
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo, and good evening to good afternoon to the viewers. Yes, you are right there when you're saying you're looking at that marginal increase in the index for Brent crude. So that is actually driven by the insecurities and insecurities in the Middle East. So what we are seeing that do through the entire economy is, if you look at the US and you look into Europe and then you come down to the global south and all the way to China, you will see that inflation is not really pulling down as we wanted it to see. And the fact that we are seeing this international standard in crude oil prices going up also that now contributes to the overall inflation. And if you look at that, we're already battling with air travel, trying to restore pre-COVID movements and pre-COVID levels of passenger traffic. So now with this increase in the price of Brent crude oil that is now being exacerbated by the instability in the Middle East, we are seeing Brent crude again playing above the $85 mark and also just tethering towards the 90 and coming back down a bit. But because we have seen those Middle Eastern crisis being trying to be resolved. But of late we have seen Israel going into Rafah, something that the international community had warned Israel strongly against from doing, but they've actually gone into Rafah and they've actually bombed Rafah as it was. So there's still that those tensions are still there in the Middle East. So that's what we are looking at, and we are seeing the US signing into law last week a $90 billion budget, which part of it is actually going to go into supporting the war in Israel and the Ukraine. So those geopolitical tensions are actually rippling across the globe, Mr. Ngumalo, and we are just hoping and waiting for things to steady out a bit there.
We're all praying for peace across the whole world, across the whole earth, Mr. Sibia. Certainly, let's talk about gold. I was just looking at the graphic on the screen. What I did see is that it is marking an increase today, but what are the factors that you believe are driving this upward movement and how it might impact investor sentiment as well as economic outlooks?
So the story of gold is one of safe havens. That's what the markets are looking for right now. So what we are looking at across the global map, we are seeing that the major currencies, your euro, your pound, and the dollar, are actually weak at the moment. And that is actually due to what we are seeing happening in Wall Street and also what we are seeing happening in London, in Frankfurt, and also in Paris, where really we expected those markets to pull down in terms of inflation and then price in an earlier or really just make it somewhat of a feasible thing to see rates cutting across the globe. So now what we are seeing is with the continuous hitting up of the economies, we've seen the United States economy, so just when you look at last week's figures, it shows inflation there also did go up a bit. If you look into Germany again, inflation in Germany has gone up a bit. So that now sends signals to the central banks to say, let's not cut rates as it were right now and probably. So what we are seeing, the markets are trying to price that in, and we're seeing the sentiment of analysts are saying that they're increasing the sentiments where analysts are not seeing rate cuts anytime this year. So last month they were at 30%. I think this month, when you poll when you poll your rate cut, your analysts, most of them are not seeing the possibility of a rate cut anytime this year, but rather a rate increase. So that's why you're not going to see gold rebounding to actually just as a safe haven for investors. So because investors are now looking into hedging their money in commodities.
You have spoken a bit, you segued a bit on what is happening in London. Let's just do that and tangent into the London Stock Exchange. How do you analyze the latest trajectory of the FTSE 100 showing a surge of at least 0.46%, if I'm not mistaken, today?
No, London is actually breaking records, when the whole world is somehow at a steady, at a standstill, where the whole world is somehow watching, waiting to see what's going to happen in markets. London is somehow just making records there. So we can see the FTSE 100 is trading at 8,185.45. That's the volumes there. So that's a record. So what drives that is purely because we're seeing London slowing down a bit in terms of inflation. It's cooling down a bit compared to the other Eurozone countries. So, and also what we are seeing there is the retailers, there's a strong spending in terms of the retailers in London right now. So that's what we are seeing leading the markets right there in London compared to where you see in Germany, the markets are a bit down, purely because there's the news coming out that, inflation is going up in Germany, so that then sends a damper into the economy, because the German economy is one that is facing quite a number of problems, and they do need some sort of a stimulus into the market. But the market forces are saying it is not yet time for that stimulus. So that tends to have a negative impact in terms of trade and how people see the overall market there. But we're seeing France rebounding a bit. So it's still a bit better there. And then when we move into the US, you will see that, yes, all major indices that we are tracking are somehow showing a sign of a rebound. So that rebound is mostly due to, we've seen companies like Tesla and Apple really just rebounding in the markets and really just showing stronger earnings and stronger trade this morning, or in pre-morning trade. So what underlines that is, markets have actually come to an understanding that if we are to stay afloat this year, we need to be profitable. So we've seen Tesla coming up with new strategies on how to handle the entire China market. So that's what we are seeing playing into the share price, and then that actually drives up the overall share price in in Tesla, which actually just leads the market. That's why we are seeing those trends in the US, even though we are seeing those trends against that rebasing of interest rate cuts. But it's purely because we're seeing companies here and there making the right moves and the right changes for the markets at this point in time.
Quite a notable surge there with the S&P 500 and a notable resilience with the other indexes as well. I'm not sure if we do have time to get into the exchange today. No, we don't. I've been notified that we don't. But anyway, thank you so much, Mr. Sbiya, for joining us on the program today. We'll see you again tomorrow, Mr. Sbiya, and appreciate your insights again. We have come to the end of the program today. Babugele Makaya, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon and your evening.